Oh, I don't necessarily remember names, but I'm pronouncing stuff. I've usually been pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
Good to see you guys this morning.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute it.
I don't think so.
Oh, no, not here. I was talking about Brother Shane.
Okay.
Brother Shane, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'll start with roll call today. I'm not sure if Betty's joined. She accepted the meeting, so she might just be a little bit behind, and maybe she'll take over leading this when she arrives. But right now, we're going to go and look at our roll call question. So, have you had a COVID-19 test? If so, which kind? The nasal swab, the saliva test, or the at-home mail-in test, the rapid test, or a blood test? So why don't we start? I'll just go through what I see on because it shifts around. It's kind of funny how the names move around. Why don't we start with Brother Shane and Dr. Price? Or maybe they're not ready. So why don't we start with Brother Wayne? Good morning. All right. And Shai? Oh, she's just coming back. There she is. We'll just move on to Mateo.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Mateo here from the Department of Health. I have had nasal, I've had saliva, I've had the antibody test as well.
Oh, wow.
I think that's all of them. Yeah.
All right. All right, Shai, you're up next. We're asking, have you had a COVID-19 test? If so, which kind? Can you unmute? Let's see. Maybe I can have the power.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yes. I've had 5 tests.
Okay.
I've had every test. So yes, I have been tested.
Did you do the mail-in test also? Did you have that one?
No, I have not done the mail-in. Nope, didn't do that. So I guess I haven't had every one. I had the nose one twice.
Okay. All right, thank you. And now I have something blocking. Let's make that go away, please. Okay, there we go. Grayson.
Good morning. I have had the nasal swab a couple months ago. I'm about to get tested again, but that's it so far.
All right. And Sandy?
I've had the nasal test about probably 4 or 5 times. I didn't know that there was a blood test, so it's like, ooh.
Yeah, I guess there is, but it must be, you know, you have to go to a clinic, and I'm sure there's a big cost to that one. Let's see, do we have Brother Shane or Dr. Price?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, so did you hear our question for the day?
I did hear the question, and like Shai, I think I've had about 5 tests as well. But the saliva test was the smoothest, and we have been using that quite a bit, both at the Brooklyn Center site, and we were using the Convention Center site. I'm not clear if that is still up, but that was as smooth as butter, and we were getting the results back, and sometimes in 24 hours, no later than 2 days. And so that has really been working well for us.
Right. And Dr. Price, how about you?
Yes.
Same.
Throat, up the nose. Yes.
We need you to sign.
All right.
Multiple,
And
multiple,
there-
every other week.
just FYI, there's saliva testing in other sites now in Minneapolis coming. I don't know if you guys have received that flyer already.
We
Just-
have not.
Okay.
Are you talking about the testing in Blaine? 'Cause that's a self swab nasal.
The one for, there's one at Sabathany, just came out yesterday. I just saw it.
Oh, yeah.
Sabathany and another one, those saliva testing.
Yeah, I don't get those flyers, so I don't know what's happening community-wise if it's not, doesn't go through MDH. So that's good to know.
Oh, okay. I'll look for it and send that to you so you can share.
All right. How about Catherine? Have you had a COVID-19 test? If so, which kind?
Yeah, I did several months ago through through a Fairview clinic, and it was a nasal swab, and the results took forever. So I've been recommending to everybody that they do the community testing if they reasonably can, because the results seem to be much faster and the process seems to be much smoother and simpler, which is, actually kudos to MDH for that, because lots of times that's, not the experience that people get smoother and easier healthcare through a clinic than they will if they go to, say, a community site for something, and it's been exactly the opposite. So huge kudos to MDH on that.
That's interesting.
Everyone I've heard of community testing has had a very smooth, easy experience, except of course nobody really likes having something shoved up their nose much.
No, that's true. Thank you. All right, Helen, have you had, which I know you have had tests,
Yeah.
so which one?
Mostly nasal. I've had several of them. I think maybe 4 now or 5.
All right. Marcus?
Yes. So I have done one right after the protest at New Salem, up the nose. But we've been so isolated that I'm like, wait, we should probably get tested again. But it's been a while. So I want to try the saliva today because we're going to be going out of town soon here.
All right. Great. Jen? One?
I have done the saliva test just once. I did it at the River Center. It was fine. I'm really, really glad now, knowing what I know, that I took my mom and forced my mom to sign up with her own email, because had I signed her up with mine, chances are our records could have gotten merged. So that's kind of the issue that we're finding. If people even enter different information for different family members but use one email, it kind of messes stuff up with that Vault Labs reporting to us. We're not really sure what the issue is, but it's, super important if you can to set up different accounts for every single person, which means setting up a email account for your 4-year-old sometimes, but that's the best way.
Yeah, and Vault will help you do that. They'll help you create mock, we're calling it mock emails if you don't have more than one. So let's see, who's next? Rochelle?
Amy, I just sent you the flyers for the saliva testing in Minneapolis.
Thank
so
you.
You can share it.
I will send it to make it sure it goes on our website. Thank you. So let's see, Rochelle?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I have not had a COVID-19 test yet.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll have quite a choice if you ever have to go for one. Yeah. Next is Rebecca Nicholson. Not hearing Rebecca. There you go.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I haven't had a test yet, so I'm hoping to get one soon.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot of places to go and get tested, so you get to choose. Roberta.
Hi, I have had testing. I have had both the nasal and the swab done. I had the nasal done at New Salem and the swab at the airport.
All right. You went, were you traveling or did you go specifically to the airport for that? Oh, she missed the question. All right.
No, I heard the question.
Okay.
No, we took some of our people there to have it done. And so we like when we're doing it to do it ahead of our people so that they will feel comfortable and confident. So that's why we did it.
All right. Thank you. Sydney.
Hey, everybody. I have had COVID tests a few times, but they've all been nasal swabs.
Okay. And we have Thierry. I know he's here. I've heard his voice. There he
Yeah, I'm here. I have had I've had nasal, swab, and like Brother Sanch said, the saliva was just heaven on earth.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, didn't do the mail-in yet, but it's close to it.
Right. Well, great. I think that's all we have. Is there anybody that I don't see that joined us? Well, there's Alan. We haven't gotten Alan. There we go.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought that I was going to be the only one on this call that said that they haven't been tested, but I see that I am not. But my wife has been pushing us, the rest of the family, to go and get tested. So we're in the process of scheduling a saliva test at one of the locations.
All right. Good. Nice to hear. And then I myself, because I have worked at a lot of testing sites, I've gotten the nasal swab. And what was interesting was I worked at in St. Paul last week, and I had a test and they were saying, oh, because there's been so many positives, it's going to take a while. They're backed up. I got it almost the next day, the result. So, you know, it's you never know when you're going to get those results. And thankfully it was negative. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it very much. We don't, let's see what we're going to move on here. We got this. So we're going to check in about your communities. Let's see. So we just got some messages. I just received some messages today, but they are the ones that are on the agenda. So there's a message about holiday social media messages and your holiday safety balloon, which I think is really important for people to look at and spread the word. Then there's one that's called Do This, Not That, approved messages. I honestly haven't opened that one, so I don't know what it is exactly. If anybody does, chime in. Minnesota Council of Churches has a statement about COVID. And then there's a whole bunch of resource updates. The other thing that is on the agenda that I wanted to make note of is that the Stair Step Foundation is sponsoring, together with New Hope Baptist Church in St. Paul, free COVID testing at St. Paul, at the Lutheran Church of the Redeemer in St. Paul. It's 285 Dale Street. It's Thursday and Friday, the 10th and the 11th, from 12 to 6, and then on the 17th and the 18th from 12 to 6. And then in North Minneapolis, together with Stair Step, together with New Salem Missionary Baptist Church, there's free COVID testing at North United Methodist Church, which is 4350 North Fremont. And that's going to be on Mondays and Tuesdays, Monday, December 21st, and the 22nd, and then Monday, December 28th and the 29th. And those are also from 12 to 6. So if you can pass that information on, the flyers should be on the website for you to grab and post. And that's what I see on our agenda for today. Are there any questions or concerns or things people would like to discuss today?
is there no information that you all have about vaccine?
We are in the stages of planning for the vaccines. Like I say, and I always tell you these, I am like nobody at MDH. So I haven't heard probably anything more than what you've heard. But I will say Jen and Mateo might be privy to some vaccine information if they want to chime in.
Yeah, just a quick question, I guess. What kind of information you're looking for? Like distribution, like priority populations? Are you looking for like how the vaccine works, or
all of the above?
All of the above. Okay. So yeah, I'll start. Jen, please chime in and correct me if and when I say something wrong. So there's, generally speaking, broadly speaking, there are going to be 3 phases of vaccine distribution. Phase 1 is going to be very targeted to specific populations, which I'll outline in a second. Phase 2 is going to be general population, mass distribution, and phase 3 is going to be kind of the catch up, look at our data, see where there might be, areas of the state where there's, less vaccination rates, and really try to increase that. Phase 1 can be further divided into 3 substages, A, B, C. 1A is essentially going to be healthcare workers and long-term care residents, just because that is primarily congregate settings as well as older adults, and that's where we're seeing a lot of deaths happen right now. So that first phase is really try to protect folks who are more likely to have worse outcomes. Phase 1B is going to be, let me pull it up real quick. Phase 1B is going to be folks in the essential workers category. We don't yet know what that means, because the way both the federal and the state government consider critical infrastructure essential work is actually 60% of the U.S. population. So there's no way we're prioritizing 60% of the U.S. population in phase 1B. So we're still waiting on kind of language as to what that means. And phase 1C is going to be high-risk adults and adults 65 years or older. So those are the first kind of 3 phases. There's 2 vaccines out there. There's Pfizer and then there's Moderna. Both require 2 doses. I'm not 100% sure on this. I do believe both require significant cold chain. I know one of them for sure does. I'm not entirely sure about the Moderna one. As for how they work, the technology behind them is called mRNA, messenger RNA. So essentially, what we found is we found that we found the genetic sequence that codes for the spike proteins on COVID-19. And that spike protein is a really, really important protein because an immune response can be triggered from our bodies once we identify that protein. So we've essentially encapsulated that little kind of RNA sequence into this kind of messenger that is going to send it into our own cells, and our own cells will actually go through the protein synthesis and create the spike proteins of the virus, which is crazy. So, once kind of we get the vaccine, we're going to see an increase in concentration in the spike proteins in our bodies. And that spike protein, that is what's going to trigger our own immune system to start creating antibodies. So the first antibodies that are created are called IgMs. And those are short-term kind of immediate antibody response. So if you look at if you have a graph, if you look at a graph, you'll have a increase in concentration in the spike proteins, and then soon after you'll see an increase in IgMs, which are the immediate kind of short-term response. And then right when you see the spike protein kind of start to peak and taper off, that's when you'll see these IgGs, and those are the long-term antibodies that our body produces to many pathogens and infections. But this one's specific for COVID-19, obviously. So once that starts to increase, the mRNA will actually, our body will naturally just stop producing those spike proteins. Because it has no role in our body, right? So as soon as that starts to happen, IgGs taper right at the time when we're supposed to get a booster. And that's really to make sure that, when IgGs start to taper, we want another little spike in those viral protein concentration, just so that our IgGs really keep going up instead of staying down. So we get a really strong immune IgG response so that when it naturally goes down and tapers, it tapers off at a higher concentration. So that's the rationale for the booster. And that's kind of the background as to how the technology behind it works. We also get a lot of questions about, is it safe? Is it effective? This came out literally less than a year when we were always told there's going to be at least 12 to 15 months, right? Very good question, very valid question. I think what's really important to emphasize in that when we get those questions is like the standards, the metrics for safety and efficacy really are the same for this vaccine as they are for all other vaccines. The reason and the rationale for the significant time decrease is because usually these are private companies with grants and support for sure, but these are pharmaceutical companies that have to worry about their bottom line. They have to be fiscally responsible, right? Capitalism. So, so essentially, they won't advance to phase 2 until phase 1 is complete. It's done, because if they start investing in phase 2 before phase 1's over, and they start realizing in phase 1 that the vaccine might not be effective, they've wasted all this money preparing and investing in phase 2. And the same thing for phase 3, and the same thing for distribution, right? In this instance, kind of the federal government and kind of the entire system and infrastructure has said, you know what, you don't have to really worry about that right now. Kind of the main thing is safety and efficacy, those metrics, and we'll make sure that if you move to phase 2 and phase 1 happens, you don't have to absorb all that cost, right? Because this is a vaccine for the public. It's going to be free for the masses. So that's kind of why it's been so fast, right? We would never think to start planning for and distributing a vaccine before phase 2 and phase 3 is complete, just because of how long, like you're talking years, it can take in those instances. A similar kind of timeline happens with the flu, actually. I mean, obviously, they have the entire flu vaccine down to, super precise, because they have to do it every season.
Were you going to say science comes down to science? They got it down to a science?
I was literally going to say they have the science down to a science, but then I caught myself. So that's the reason for kind of why we're able to move so quickly, right? Overlapping phases, overlapping distributions, and pharmaceutical companies don't have to worry about their bottom line.
Okay, so we have a couple of hands raised, and I see Sandy, do you have a question or a comment?
Nope, it was an accident, but I mean, I really wanted to know, but it might be too late, the percentage of Black people who participated in clinical trials, and because I just want to make sure, but it's a mute issue, that the most impacted communities were represented, and
That's a good question.
I know there was a lot of coverage in the media about difficulty enrolling, especially BIPOC folks, BIPOC folks, because of obvious reasons, but I don't know specific numbers. Mateo, do you know?
I did come across something like that. I did come across the demographic makeup of all these vaccine trials. I'm looking for it now, so I'll find it in a second. Sorry.
That was one of the things that I had asked for. I was on a webinar the other day when they were talking about the vaccine, and I just, we were talking about the distrust of the community of the African American community. That's the one I can speak for, in terms of, and how do we talk about this vaccine and talk to people about receiving it. And I said, there's some things that for myself that I need to know, because I am trusted in the community and amongst the young people, the population that I targeted for this grant. You know, when they see that logo or they see Check Yourself or whatever, I've built over the years of a level of trust with them. And so there's some things I told them I would like to have the information and the bio resumes or of the people that participated in the oh my God, I can't think of what I'm trying to say. The trial.
That's 30,000 people.
I want to know who they are, and I want to know the breakdown of how were people selected? What was the process? What was the application process? How were they selected for who participated in the trial? You know, and then I also said that it would maybe be good if they were to get some of the African American people that participated in the trial to do some type of media, a Zoom
public service announcement.
Yes, something, because people just coming in the community just saying, you know, this is good, take this, that's not going to work. And people have questions, and I think they deserve to know. I feel like I'm going to need to know. I'm not getting ready to go to my community and say, take this vaccine unless I have certain information. And
Shai, thank you so much. That's really, you made a really, really good point. And I think what we need to do is generate those questions so we at MDH can start at least researching and finding the answers to the questions and things that you want to know.
Yeah, I interviewed several young people last night to ask them, would they get this vaccine? And some said yes, and some said no. And the question was, tell me why you would get it, and tell me why you wouldn't. And so it was very interesting to hear the comments. And I also asked them what would be the questions that they would want me to ask in terms of getting the information about the vaccine.
Okay, I'm going to look at the raised hands, and I see that Catherine has had her hand raised, Catherine Shane, for a while. Do you have a question, Catherine?
Yeah, I'm wondering about plans for vaccine distribution in congregate care living settings other than nursing homes. For example, prisons, where there's been significant outbreaks, and also other congregate care facilities that aren't nursing homes, but specifically prisons.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't know where prisons and other congregate settings fit in. I know they fit in somewhere. I don't know where that is. So I will make sure I get an answer to you on that, and everybody here.
Yeah, no, I really think that's important, because I think that's another basic issue of trust. I mean, so just because someone's in prison doesn't mean they don't deserve to have access to the vaccine.
Oh, goodness.
And they need it more than all
agree.
Communities.
Completely agree.
Mateo, I'm going to ask you that information that you talked about with the different phases. I didn't take good notes on that. Is there any way that you could send me a summary?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll include it in the notes so everybody will be able to see that. Thank you. We also have Rebecca Nicholson, who has her hand raised, and then Roberta, you'll be next.
Yes, I just wanted to kind of go back to the discussion about, medical distrust in the Black community. And I think it's important to, when we have conversations about why there may be distrust, to think about the exact history of, what we're referring to when we think about the Tuskegee experiments and, how people were just exploited in that particular experiment, and that's not something that's talked about regularly. And it's not just Black folks as well. There's also examples of other communities of color being used as, these opportunities for research without consent, and without ensuring that the folks who were participating knew what the full risks were. So I think when we start to go forward in thinking about talking, and educating folks about the vaccine, it might be really important to reference that history, in a sort of literal way, not just sort of saying, oh, you might have some distrust for these vaccines, but actually being able to talk about those experiments and what happened.
Yeah, and Rebecca,
you know,
you also don't even have to go that far back to Tuskegee, right? Like Flint, Michigan. I mean, there is literally evidence that the state government there, right, the health agency there, underreported elevated lead counts in primarily Black communities there, right? I hear you. I'm with you. And there are so many more examples of that. So
yeah, like forced sterilization happening right now.
Yeah, in ICE detention centers.
Mm-hmm.
Could you?
That's all I wanted to add.
Could you repeat that, Jen? I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, just another horrific example is in ICE detention centers, forced sterilization is taking place.
Thank you. This is really great information that we will make sure to pass on so that we can get answers. Thank you. We also, let's see, Roberta, you have a question?
I was going to make some comments, but it seems that most of the comments that I was going to make has already been brought up. But when we were looking at the percentage when we were in the training, it was 10% African Americans that participated in the study. And Shai is absolutely right. She wanted information on who those people are, where something about where they came from, so you could really understand who those test subjects were, so that when we're educating our community, we can educate them properly.
Sorry, I'm taking notes. Wow. Okay. And then Helen, you had your hand raised.
Yes. Mateo, thanks for the breakdown. One of the things is it's that second shot that's needed. We need to really get that information out in plain languages for the community, because knowing our community, they may go for the first one, but the importance of getting the second shot to build up that immunity, because people will go, they may, okay, I'll really try this out, but you mean I got to go back for a second one? And they may not go back for the second one, which mean the IgG will go down. But we need to put it in plain language that it's building up. And if you don't go back for the second one, then your immunity that started to be built up, it will go down. And so that will increase your risk of getting COVID again. So we need to put that in plain language.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know, Jen, I don't know if you know, so we have a pretty comprehensive kind of surveillance system that we use for all our vaccines. I don't know if, Jen, do you know if I'm sure there is some sort of plan, some notification kind of process to help remind folks to come back. I don't know. I think there is. I like to think there is, but I don't know. Jen, do you know?
I'm not sure on the details, and I, like my contact over on the immunization side of things and vaccine side of things for COVID is Jess Monroe, and she's pretty knowledgeable. And I know that they've been working for at least 4 months now on some of this stuff. And so I don't know what those plans look like, but I do know that we have people working very hard and very diligently to try to get everything in place so that when it's ready to go, the information is set, the infrastructure is set, but I have no idea on the details.
I heard that there, when you receive the first vaccine, that you will get a card that will state the type of vaccine, the log number, just so they can follow up to make sure when you come back for the second one that you're getting that same kind, especially since 2 pharmaceuticals will be possibly distributing those. So there is a card that people will get, And it's important to also inform the community the importance of hanging on to those cards, because that tells when they go back, they can match it up to make sure they're getting the correct one. And I forgot what, I've been in so many meetings, I forgot what meeting they talked about that in, or maybe it was our town hall meeting yesterday. I don't remember. But anyway, they're getting a card. They'll need to bring the card back to make sure they're getting a similar shot for the second shot.
Yeah.
And so, you know, trying to get that information to our community and make sure that they hang on to those things or see that those things are important. That's the pieces that, as community liaison and as community contract workers, that you guys can help us to get that message out, the importance of going back for the second shot and making sure that they're taking the card or whatever they have been given when they go back for their second shot to make sure it's they're getting the right shot.
That is really good information. I would suspect that people who are working on surveillance system and systems to track vaccinations will also have some sort of system to track that, because we can't rely on people. I know, you know, not everybody in our population is going to be able to keep that card. So I think, I know for a fact it's being worked on as we speak, and it's a big project.
Jen and I will connect with the vaccines team just to, you know, because I feel like, you know, Jen, we also kind of need to get caught up on all these details as well. So pardon us for not doing our due diligence ahead of time. But, you know, we'll connect with them, we'll get the lowdown, and we'll make sure that all that information is either shared with you here or is shared to you somehow, because those are great points you bring up, Helen.
Yeah. So there are still some hands raised. I'm going to say, Brother Shane.
Right. Well, I appreciate what Helen was sharing about the second shot. Mateo, I hear what you are saying as well. But let me just share that for us, just convincing people to get the test was no small task, and getting the test is one thing, and it's a very helpful tool, but we really had to shift the pendulum from absolutely not, you know, to maybe, until we really got a majority of our, well, really all of our people to get tested. But that took work. There was work there. And so I don't think that we're anywhere close to getting a vaccine, period. This period. And even some people who are on the call now haven't been tested. So, you know, I just, for whatever reason, you know, and so I just think that we shouldn't expect somehow that the vaccine, because it's available, is somehow going to be accepted overnight as the way to go. And if, in fact, populations at risk, which we are supposed to be representing right now, you know, there's going to have to be some work. Somebody talked about public service announcements and other kinds of things. They're going to need to be done, because otherwise, you know, I foresee strong resistance from the populations of color to taking the vaccine at all. And I guess I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I don't feel like in this particular call we're prepared to talk about or to what that is really going to look like. So maybe we're putting the cart before the horse in some ways, if to be respectful to everyone, but to, you know, quite honestly, we're being bombarded in the media with the dynamics of the vaccine, and so yes, if we're hearing that in media on one end, but not preparing media on the other to access the testing or to talk about why it's important, then we're missing the boat there. And I want to just compliment you all from MDH for even creating this, kind of Afrocentric dynamic. And I appreciate that. And I tell you what, our conscious level has been raised exponentially as a result of the connection that we've had with all of you. And so we're grateful for that. But we're not going to, we're not going to go to sleep on the fact that we have to do more work to get people to a place where they ought to be tested. And I don't hear in the discussion specific information. Here's how we're going to test African Americans. Just clear, not up here, watered down language and somehow that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? And you can only water down some things so far to where they're meaningless. And so if African Americans are an at-risk population, then how are African Americans going to get the vaccine and why should they? I mean, just say it like it is and be fine with telling people the truth as opposed to looking for politically correct language that makes everybody happy but doesn't get people tested or vaccinated. And I say this with love. I mean this with love. But please understand, we're just concerned here, and you all have helped us become concerned. So don't be angry with me if I. Okay, all right, I'll stop there.
No, I am not angry at all. I think I think you go right to the point to tell us that we have to go right to the point, right? And not kind of fiddle fart around.
Well, I think I'm going to interrupt you just for a second. I think I really feel strongly that this needs to be elevated, and elevated by the people who are voicing their opinions and beliefs in some way. And I'm hoping that Mateo and Jen and myself and Helen and Sandy can elevate this and bring some people in, maybe have a conversation about this very topic, because we're talking about the African American population, but I'm not going to say it's going to be different for the Somali population. I'm not going to say it's going to be different for the Hmong population. We need to get this in place, and I'm hoping that we can elevate all of this information to at least people at MDH who can work on that.
Thank you, Brother Shane. This is Sandy for your candid expression of concern. This, from what I can gather, is a moving target, and there are some things that we know for sure, but we cannot expect people, particularly Black people, to be on board with the medical community without more information from people who represent us. So I understand it and we hear you. So I just wanted to say thank you. And we are going to make sure that we are using our platform to bring more culturally specific details into our conversations so we all can feel more comfortable in talking about this issue to our people.
The other thing I was going to say, Brother Shane, was I think one thing that you brought up that I really want to echo is the vaccine is months away. We are having like the vaccine, like we're gonna get the first doses in just a few weeks, right? But for the mass population, it is months away from being accessible. Okay, so we're having this one conversation on this line about starting to inform you all, starting to collect feedback from communities, really trying to build up this plan. I think we still have to, for the most part, remain on this track, which is right now the message that we still have to be telling people is because all they're hearing is about this vaccine, right? That's all they're hearing in the media. That is not the reality, okay? They like to focus on the vaccine. It's new information. It's good, it's hopeful, it's optimistic. It gives us a glimpse. Right now, people are still dying. People are still getting infected. And that has to be the main track that we all stick on. Yeah. Right? That has to be our priority right now, because between now and spring, when people can get tested, we have to prevent people from getting infected, right? It makes no sense for us to have mass distribution campaigns at these sites if our level of community transmission is so high that the mere act of going to get a vaccine is risky, right? That is what we want to avoid. So I hear you loud and clear. I echo what Sandy said, but yeah.
So we have a few more hands raised. I see Catherine, Shane, and then Shai, your hand is raised also. So we'll go, Catherine, do you have a comment?
Not really a comment, just a question, and maybe Matteo said this and I missed it, but I think it will be very important to know and to explain the difference between getting a vaccine and building an immunity in terms of time. I remember being vaguely convinced that once I got my flu shot, I was like immune that minute. And I know that I now know that that's not true, but that might be some just important thing to put into messaging, and that would be good to understand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and then Shai, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I wanted to go back to where we were talking about the series of shots, the 2 shots, and they were saying about the card and everything. What is the time frame? I didn't hear that. What is the time frame, the gap in between the first shot and the second shot? Can someone tell me that?
Yeah, Chai, I believe it's 3 weeks for one of them and 4 weeks for the other. Jen, do you correct me? I know one of them is 3 weeks, and I know one of them is 4 weeks. I don't know which is which.
Okay. You're speaking of Pfizer and
Moderna.
Moderna. Yeah, I think Pfizer is the 3 weeks. I'm not sure. From what? Okay. Then I wanted to say something about in terms of the community work, and for those of us that are all on here under the community engagement, a new RFP just came out. That's going to be due on the 28th. I'm just curious to who, in terms of how this setup, was it based on a government's way or rules and regulations to how it should be done? Because really, to me, if you really wanted to be serious about getting this work done, you could have continued with who you have, who's been doing this work, who's been building the relationships in the community. My young people are just starting to get in the flow of this. Our social media is off the chain. The stuff we're doing now is just now starting to gel. Grant's over December 31st. And you're going to do another round of money, but with a whole nother applying situation. And I understand that this one, when I read it, it's focused a little bit more on getting people and to talk about the vaccine and getting the vaccine. But why wouldn't we just add that piece to what is already existing? To me, it's just a poor use of time, a poor use of money. If there is money that hasn't been spent, which in what it is we're doing now, based on the time that it's taking to get everything jailed and done, and then for it to be over, and then for somebody to be starting a new process, a competitive process, to me just really doesn't make for good sense. And I'm just a little bit curious about who it is, because I think those of us that are already in it right now here today that have been getting it done, it would be incredible to be able to continue and then have an education process about the vaccine and to talk to the community, because we've already been out here building relationships. People know what it is that we're doing, and to be able to have that conversation, and also for us to be trained and get the information. Like I said, there's going to be certain information that I personally, Shai Ellis, I'm going to have to know before I go to my community talking about take a vaccine. And so I just think that we're kind of in the place to be able to deliver, to do this work with excellence, get the information with an existing connection to our community regarding COVID, because we're out here doing a COVID piece. And so I was a little bit, when I'm glad that it's going to be available. I'm glad that there's money coming through, but I think the process and the way that they went about doing this, I just think it's no good to the community. I think it's just, here we go again. Just another group, another competitive process, so I don't know if you all, if you were involved in any meetings or how this was going to go about, or but did you reach out? Because I didn't remember anybody reaching out to me about it or any discussion. I didn't see any meeting or anything in terms of talking about how do we go forward with this in our communities and with the dollars.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mateo.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. I wasn't a part of that, and I haven't been with the contracts and stuff like that, so I don't know all the things. I agree with you because you have established some things within the community. You're beginning to just pick up speed, and all of a sudden it's over. And then to just stop. Yeah, it would make more sense to amend the contract. And I thought that was being done to some of the contracts, and I am not aware of that, but I definitely will bring that back I will take that back to the to our meetings.
It was something they had considered. It was something that they had, I guess they were considering or had talked about and discussed, because I had heard that. And then I thought this would be incredible to allow all the people that are already existing continue to flow, to get this out here. So because now, going through another process and a grant and all that. Yeah. And I know that my young people and this program that we're doing is doing great work, and we are reaching our target population. But, like I said, it's over December 31st. Now it's time to cut it off and just throw out. Now the focus is get a vaccine. No, that's just not the way. That's not how it works for our community anyway. Let me speak to our community.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, we hear you.
I will also add that as a white professional grant writer, I don't like this process because I see that privileges organizations like mine that can afford to hire me. And that our organization is a great organization. We're doing fantastic work. I don't have any doubt about that. But it still isn't a fair process.
No, it's not.
And it because it still privileges large organizations with money, and which is not the organizations that can do the best communication to this community. Some of them are, but lots of them are not. Also, Christmas, I know not everybody celebrates Christmas, etc. But it is a time when a lot of people have a lot of other obligations, when a lot of people take PTO, when a lot of organizations take weeks off. It's not an awesome time to do a major RFP.
Yep. Yes, you're heard loud and clear for sure. I see that Brother Shane or Dr. Price has their hand raised, and we're running out of time, so.
Well, what I would say, Amy, is just from an organizational perspective, it's really about effectiveness and outcomes. And so if MDH is looking truly for outcomes and to move the needle on educating communities of color, particularly African American communities, and providing some level of impact and also confidence, because it takes so much time to create confidence with the information with large organizations. So to switch up the intermediaries right in the middle of right in the middle of the work is really not an effective strategy. So I would take that back to your team and say, if we really want to see results here, we want to really deepen the work, then we've got to continue with the work and continue supporting those organizations that have done that effectively.
I'm sorry, I'm writing this down.
Amen.
I guess, I'll just say just real quickly, I was part of the initial review process for these grants, not the setup, but the review process. And the first question that came up during our reviews is what happens on December 31st. right? So know that this goes against everything that I guess and I hope we at the Department of Health believe is the right thing to do when it comes to authentic community engagement, because it's about those long-term investments, right? It's not about funding a program to do a few weeks worth of work, and you're absolutely right. That doesn't help. So I can just echo that I will also bring this up to my channels as well, because I'm also disappointed.
I would say that everybody on this call totally agrees with what you're saying and have agreed all along, but we're not necessarily the people making those decisions, but we can certainly elevate the information that you're giving us, which Helen will do, Sandy will do, I will do, Mateo and Jen will do as well, because I think you're 100% correct.
Who are the people making the decision? I would like to know who it is that's making the decision.
I would too. I don't know personally.
I would assume it's a combination of factors. I'm not a contracts expert. I have no idea if the way the contracts were initially set up means that once, if we're only guaranteed funding through December 31st, I don't know if the way the contracts were set up, if those contracts can be amended after the funding has run out, when there's a new stream of it. I don't know about that, but I will try to poke around and get some answers.
I am a grant manager for another set of money, the community solution funds. And what I am learning is that there are some rules in MDH agency, and not necessarily in all the other agency, in terms of how you go about giving out the money. Some of it say you have to go back to a competitive process, especially since it's a new pot of money, and or you have to do sole source and stuff like that. It's very sort of convoluted. It's bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And so we're working on, because we're seeing that in other areas. So we're working to see how we can revise some of these things that are happening, because it's coming up in other areas too. So I think it's just the policies and procedures that are in place that's making this happen. But I definitely think people who are started should be given priority. And then if there's additional funds, then others should then apply.
Miss Helen, thank you for that, because that's really important. Except for all of those policies you just mentioned are pre-pandemic. And so the policy doesn't reflect the nature of the environment we're currently living in. We need you guys' help here to bump this up to the next level. And maybe as a group, we just are inviting others, decision makers, to the discussion to help us appreciate what we're talking about and a few other things. And maybe we're all better educated for it.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I kind of have an issue with is that I mean, and I know if you don't know, you don't know, but if we don't even know who the decision makers are, how do we even approach this?
Well, we know it's leadership, but we don't know who. It's a combination of a number of different departments and units and people.
Do we need to be contacting Jan, or do we need to be I mean, what is how can we help by saying, to me, we're doing to me, this is my issue. We're doing our community a big disservice, and we're not handling this in a way of, like he said, there's a pandemic going on. We've already got started with work. To just cut it off, start anew during a holiday, and we just kind of already went. I'm really kind of repeating myself, and I don't want to do that. But I'm really concerned that if it doesn't happen, if we don't get this in here right now, because that notice just went out 17 hours ago. Yeah. If they're going to make a shift, it's going to have to happen quick.
Yeah. So Shai, I certainly, it certainly wouldn't hurt to contact or communicate with Jan. I mean, you know, it's entirely up to you. I'm not recommending, I'm not saying you should do that, but it certainly, it never hurts to advocate for what you believe in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you.
So we are after the hour, and actually my next thing on the agenda was this funding opportunity to talk about that. So I'm glad we got right into it. Very, very important meeting, good conversation. In theory, no, we still have another one coming. So the next meeting is supposed to be on, I think I put it on the agenda. Let's see if I can find that. Wednesday, December 23rd. I know that's a tough time, but I think right now we're going to keep it on and we'll send out the meeting invite. I haven't heard of any.
I will be on vacation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might be on vacation, but we can certainly still hold the meeting. If there are people around who want to join, we can do that. Maybe inform you of what are some of the things that we learned about and inform you about stuff that we talked about today. Is anybody able to come? If you are if you're going to be here on the 23rd of December and will be able to attend this meeting, can you raise your hand?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to see that.
Or yeah, you can raise your hand electronically if you see what.
That's the meeting.
Yeah.
It seemed like most people.
Yep. All right. The meeting will happen. By hook or by crook, it will happen. So good. Thank you all so much. We may be calling on you for your words. We don't know, but thank you very much. Really appreciate all of your input. And have a nice rest of the day. It looks like Catherine, Shane, are you looking to say something?
Yeah, quickly, I was just going to suggest, as a possibility, if the reason you're dealing with this situation is that there is a requirement of a competitive process, there is no reason you can't build into the competitive process 10 magic points or 100 magic points for existing funders, and basically have existing funders tell you 3 things. What have they done? How much money do they need to keep doing it, or they have money left over, money they haven't spent yet, or whatever, and how long can they do it? And then only if somebody's like can't answer those 3 questions, do you take them out of the pool. Make it just easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There are requirements. I know that there have been some contracts in diverse media that have been amended. I don't really know how they're coming about these differences. It's been slightly different for the pandemic than what our normal.
Thank you, Catherine. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that is a really good idea. Once again, thank you, everybody. Dr. Price, I did call Brother Shane back. I don't know if he got my message, so if he wants to communicate, we can talk offline.
That sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Jen, I'll stay on.
Okay, Amy, can you, Mateo? It's
sure.
2 seconds. And it doesn't matter.
Sandy, can you hang on for a sec?
Amy, I'd love to talk with you in a few minutes about something else when you have I can give you a call if that's okay.
Yeah, or sure, that'll be fine.
All right, thanks.
So I just saw, Helen, your thing. Amy, please share this conversation with Lynn. My contact, Jess, I talked with her about all of the questions that we have that community was bringing up in this conversation, have brought up in other conversations, and also what we want to know about logistics and use of tech and use of community members in that kind of stuff in advertising or promotion. And Jess said that Lynn is the best person for Mateo and I to talk to get up to speed on all of that. So rather than you reaching out individually on this conversation, would you like Mateo and I to just take what we've learned here from this into our conversation with Lynn when we get up to speed on all of the logistics?
And who's Lynn?
Yeah,
Lynn
that would be great.
I don't know who Lynn is.
Who is Lynn?